Man, thank you so much for being here. If when you came in, the ushers gave you a red brick, everybody got a red brick. If you don't have one, raise your hand, and one of our team will get it to you just so that we can make sure that you guys can all participate. But man, really, thank you for coming. But even more than that, thank you for all that you do. You know, the reason that you guys are here is because you're the volunteers, you're the ones who lead teams, lead life groups, lead departments, lead ministries, serve in a big way here at Living Church. So thank you for what you do. Could you give a round of applause for your neighbor for how hard they work and everything that they do? You know, Pastor Whitney said it a minute ago, but we could not do what we do here at Living Church without you. It's through your effort, through your service, through your sacrifice, for your handshakes and your high fives and your prayers and your loving of people and you opening your home and letting people come over and you getting here early and making coffee and making communion cups and you here making sure the chairs are stuffed with the right stuff. It's you shaking hands and opening doors and telling people, well, I'm sorry, the back row's not available yet. Please fill from the front. It's because of you. It's because of you that ministry can happen here. So thank you for doing what you do. We just wanted to take some time tonight to talk about where we're going, to talk about the vision of Living Church, to talk about what God's been up to and what we think He's saying for the future. You know, 2 years ago, Living Church on a Sunday was running around 300 to 350 people 2 years ago. Now, throughout the summer, we're averaging 700 to 750 people in 2 years. And so what God's done in the last 2 years is amazing, and it's exciting, and it's worth celebrating. And man, we praise the Lord for it. But with that growth adds some additional challenges. You know, you guys see how full the lobby is on Sunday. It's packed. You see that in services, people are coming in, and ushers are having to bring in chairs, and it's full. That when you add that many people, you double, and in Mansfield, triple the number of kids that you have on Sundays. And so we've added a kids building in the back. And so there's been a lot of challenges with that. And so I want you to know that we're working through and pushing through those challenges. One of the challenges we had is we ran out of parking. Is that we would see cars pull in, not have a spot, pull back out, and not even come in. And that's not acceptable, right? Like, we want people to have an area, a place that they can come in and connect with God. And so we've launched a parking team. So thank you for those of you that serve on the parking team. Thank you for your efforts for leading that. Thank you for standing out in the heat and waving to cars. You know, with so many kids that we have coming in, our systems and our structure of how we ran kids when we had 70 on a Sunday is a lot different than how we have to run kids when we have 140 kids on a Sunday. And so if you serve in preschool, thank you. Thank you for serving. I know that sometimes Sundays things feel like they're crazy and you're going, oh my God, what is happening? We have too many kids in this tiny room. We know. Like, we've been meeting with some of our leaders even this week saying, okay, let's fix our systems. Let's change our strategies. Let's start growing in these areas so we can better serve children. So thank you for serving. Thank you for all that you do every week, week in and week out. And not only are there those kind of challenges, but there are building limitations that we have. If you were here at SummerSlam, it was slammed. It was full. It was packed. I mean, for Easter, we couldn't fit everybody. So we keep adding services and we keep doing the things that we need to do to reach people, but we can't just get complacent in where we are. We can't just thank God for what He's done and then say that's good enough, because here at Living Church, we believe there's more. Y'all know, that's good. You're shouting me down. And so we know that there's more. And so we have to be looking forward to the future to see what we're going to do. And it's because of that we bought 36 acres. So if you were here a couple weeks ago, you heard the testimony, and we talked about how we had been looking for land and praying about what was next and how God had opened an opportunity, and we bought 36 acres here in Mansfield off 287 and Heritage. The reason we did that is so that we don't get stuck in good enough, so we won't get stuck in today, but realize we have to chase after there's more. And so the reason that you're here tonight is because you're a leader. The reason you're here is because you have influence at Living Church. The reason that you're here is because you serve and support the vision. So we want to give you a sneak peek what I'm talking about tonight. I'm not just going to re-preach later. Some of it I'll talk to the church about. But I wanted to give you an idea of where we're going. On September 9th, so that's not this Sunday, not the next Sunday, but the next Sunday, on September 9th, we're launching a new series called Charge. We're going to be talking about how we need to charge into the future, that we can't just be okay in the present, but we have to be looking forward. And so I wanted you to know about where we're going and what's happening. This is going to be a series based around the story of Joshua and the walls of Jericho. And you guys know the story. We preached a series on Joshua about 2 years ago. I've been flirting with him a little bit in my messages and talking about Joshua. We're now in Squish the Grasshopper, right? And we're talking about Joshua before he was able to get into the promised land. So we're going to look at this story of Joshua over the next couple weeks as we charge ahead. You know, I believe that the reason that Joshua had the confidence to squish the grasshopper and charge, and this is just a family talk, is that okay? So this isn't like a sermon, it's just like, bleh. It's just like out of my heart, and I just want to tell you where we are. The reason that Joshua could charge into what God was calling him to do is because he knew that God was with him back here. Like, he remembered everything God did before, so he believed that he would do it again in his life. And as I look back over the history of Living Church, you know, there have been some obstacles. There have been some challenges. There's been some things that have showed up in the history of Living Church that we've had to jump over. There have been some looming giants that we had to go and kill. There have been some walls of Jericho we had to march around and pray. And as I look back over the last 8 years, I'm excited for the future because I remember the obstacles that God handled for us in the past. When we first started in 2010, we came and tried to figure out a place to have service. And so we toured high schools and restaurants and junior highs and all the cafetoriums. That's a cafeteria / auditorium, so they smell like old pizza and chicken nuggets, right? And so we toured all these places to figure out, God, what did you have for us? And it was expensive, and nothing really felt like it was going to work. And so I drove down Walnut Creek one day and saw a building that looked really beautiful and found out that it was an Aristide, the wedding venue, event center. How many of you have been with us since Aristide? Let me see you. Thank you for serving. Thank you for being here. Those of you that are new, those people that raised their hand went through some heavy stuff. They were getting there at 5 a.m. doing setup and tear down. They weren't leaving till 3 p.m. with me clapping my hands saying, come on, y'all, we can do it, push it up the truck ramp, right? And so in the beginning, we didn't have a meeting space. And so we met the owner and cast the vision to him. And this guy, he didn't know us from anybody. Cast the vision and talked about the kind of church that Mansfield needed. And this guy, his name's Larry Nix, he gave us a deal cheaper than it would have been for us to rent a high school cafeteria. And God made a way where there was no way. And so when I think about what's next, I know he's going to do it then because he did it before. Then I remember that, man, I was a youth pastor a long time before we planted Living Church. We had a big heart for student ministry. And when you don't own a building, you can't just have youth group. And so we said, okay, we've got to find a place to have youth. And we looked around, and we can't use a school because they have functions during the week. And so I heard about this place called Far Best Theater in old downtown Mansfield. And the theater hadn't been used for a while. There was kind of some issues and some things going on. So I set up a meeting with the owner's daughter. Her name is Rhonda. And I cast the vision to her. And she said, well, you know, we've never rented this consistently ever. We've never let a church use it before, and I just kept casting the vision, and I just kept pushing. And she went and met with her dad, and they came back with a yes. And they allowed us to start having Spark youth services. We did setup and tear down there for 4 years, reaching teenagers in our community. And so when I think about the future, about the barriers that are blocking us for the future, I get excited because I remember he made a way back then where there wasn't a way. Then I remember when we were too big for Aristide, and we were getting kicked out of there because they were selling the building. Larry, the guy who was a friend, was selling the building to another organization, and they didn't want us there. They couldn't handle that big of group, and so we had to start looking for property. And we looked for everything that could seat 100 people. I went and toured. We talked to everybody. We were looking at land, and just nothing made any sense. And God told Rachel and I to start attending some other churches on Sundays. He said, go and see what God's doing in some other churches. And so because of our city involvement and through some friends, we heard about other churches in the area that might be looking for a change. So Rachel and I, over 2 Sundays, went to 6 different churches. And afterwards, I introduced myself to the pastors and said, hi, I'm Trustin Babel, Living Church. Here's what God's doing. You've been in the community longer than me. We're looking for a building. We're looking for property. Do you have any ideas? And my hope was that one of these guys would say, well, you know what? I'm thinking about selling my building. And so we came to a service at a church that we had never been to in this building, 2271 Matlock. And there was another church that was meeting here. It was a closed down sports bar. The sports bar had left, and the Baptist Association had purchased this building, and a church had been here for about 5 or 6 years, and they were doing things and ministering to people and reaching the community, but they felt like there was a change that was needed for them. And from the shaking of the hand to that pastor, within 5 weeks, we absorbed that nonprofit and we took possession of the building, which allowed for us to do a full gut renovation, and God made a way where there was no way. It was unbelievable. A story I don't think I've told, I'm a Jeep guy. Any Jeep people in the room? I'm a Jeep guy. And so when we first got here in 2010, I was driving down Matlock one day. This building used to look a lot different, and it was raining outside. And there was a yellow Jeep parked out front that had the top down. And so it was getting rained in. And so I pulled over, remember, baby? I pulled over. It's what Jeep people do. Like, we love you. We're like Christians except car drivers, right? And so I pulled over, and I put the top up on the Jeep, and I zipped the windows in. And I just thought, man, if this was my Jeep, I would want somebody to take care of me. And I didn't think anything of it. Until 5 years later, I realized that I'm about to go to a service here. And so we're standing in the back of the auditorium, and I shake the pastor. I've never told this story before, have I? And so I shake the pastor's hand, and I say, yeah, actually, the only time I've ever been on this property was 5 years ago. There was a yellow Jeep parked out front, had the top down, was ran up with the top up. And he looked at me, and he said, that was my Jeep. Ambidextrous God. You see, because you don't understand what God's doing, but his plan is so good. His plan starts way farther than you can even imagine that his plan has for you. And so he made a way where there is no way. And so I believe where Living Church is right now is another pivotal moment, that it's a new season that we're walking into. And there are some hurdles, and there are some walls, and there are some things that we have to figure out, but he's been with us. And so I remember Joshua in the Bible standing on the edge of the Jordan looking into the promised land, and he knows that Jericho's right over the first hill. He knows that there's this giant fortified city. It's the first place that he has to go and he has to take over. And so for us, that's kind of how I feel. I feel like I'm looking over the Jordan. We bought the 36 acres. I see the promised land. But we have to build a big building, and that's not cheap. And so I feel like I see it, like I know where we're going, but there's giants over there, and there's this really scary thing that we've never done before. Like, we renovated this little building, and that was hard. But like, this is something that's like even beyond what we've ever done before. But you know what? It's time to trust God. We had a series called Trust. It's time to trust God. It's time to squish the grasshopper, and it's time to charge. It's time to charge into the things that God has called us to, so we don't get stuck wandering just here in the wilderness. God's plan since the beginning of humanity was for mankind to establish his kingdom on earth. He told Adam and Eve to multiply. He told them to have dominion over the earth. God's plan is to establish his kingdom on earth. And I believe what he wants to do through Living Church is use us to establish his kingdom on earth. That this 36 acres is not about Living Church. It's not about us. It's not about me. It's about his kingdom. It's about God's light being shown through the earth. And so after 40 years, Joshua is frustrated. He couldn't get in the first time. He was a spy. He couldn't get in. Now he's back again. He's about to cross over the Jordan. He feels some of that grasshopper rise up in him. And so in Joshua chapter 1, God starts to speak to him, and he gives him some grasshopper stomping boots. He gives him some statements to stand on that he can live with. Joshua 1:3, God tells him, I will give you every place where you set your foot. Joshua 1:5, he says, no one will be able to stand against you all the days of your life. Joshua 1:7, he tells him, be strong and very courageous. Keep this book of the law always on your lips, and you will be prosperous and successful. God says, do not be afraid, do not be discouraged, for the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. So they cross over the promised land, they cross over the Jordan, but there's still a battle to be had. And so anytime you're taking ground, there's a battle. Like if you're trying to lose weight, there's about to be a battle. You're trying to get out of debt, there's about to be a battle. You're trying to grow and help your marriage, there's about to be a battle. There's always a battle when you're making progress. And so Joshua is in this moment that he's about to have a battle. So y'all know the story of Joshua on the walls of Jericho. They go, God tells them to march around the walls. So after 7 days, and then on the seventh day, after 7 laps, God gives Joshua some instructions, and here's what Joshua tells the people. Joshua 6:5. This is where the whole series comes from. Joshua says, when you hear the priests, the spiritual leaders, give one long blast on the ram's horn, have all the people, who? Have all the people shout as loud as they can, to be fully committed, to give everything they got. And he says, then. Don't walk around it again. Don't build a battering ram or sharpen your sword. After all the people shout, it says, then the walls of the town will collapse and all the people can charge straight in. Can charge straight into the town. And so I've been praying, and we felt like God told us that we're supposed to be in a season where we're charging. This is it, man. That when all the people will give all that they have to charge into the future, God will establish a place for us to elevate his kingdom on the earth. And so before we tell the church, I wanted you to know what we were doing. And so over the summer and over the last couple months, I've been having meetings and conversations, and we have this meeting tonight. And all these conversations are simply me blowing the trumpet. I don't have a trumpet. I would like to get one of the ram's horns, but I don't have one, right? This is me blowing the trumpet. This is me saying, hey, it's time. We've walked around the walls. We've prayed. We've fasted. We've given. We've preached the word. We've seen growth. We've done what God's called us to do, but now it's time for us to charge. And I believe with everything in me, it's the right time. That we're not getting too excited, that this is not premature, that we're not too late, but we're in lockstep with what God is telling us as a church to do, and it's time for us to charge. About a year ago, God put it on our heart to buy land, but now it's time to build. We're not just supposed to have land to tell everybody, we have 36 acres, isn't that fun? It doesn't do us any good if we're not occupying it. I'll get super sidetracked, but I don't have time, but God told Abraham that the land was his. If it's yours, that means you already own it, but he had not yet possessed it. And so there's a difference between being given something and possessing, I don't have time, but possessing something. And so what we have to do is we have to go in and possess the thing that God's given us, and we have to establish ourselves there. Mansfield is only going to keep growing. Land's only going to keep getting more expensive. More people are only going to keep coming, but now's the time to prepare for the future. And so I heard a quote from Malcolm X, and he said this. He said, the future belongs to those who are willing to prepare for it today. That those of us that are willing to prepare for it today are the ones that own the future. Lucky people don't own the future. People that it just all works out for aren't the ones that own the future. The ones who own the future are people that will prepare for it today. And so what is this meeting? This is preparing for the future. This is the leaders of the church, people that are already bought in and committed to the vision, who we're preparing, saying, God, we believe that you have something more for us. This building is just a tool. This building, Pastor Brandon said it, this is not spiritual. These are pieces of plywood, right? Our pallet wood we bought from some dude. This is just plywood under carpet. This is not spiritual. This is just a tool. And so I'm a guy that likes to work with my hands, and if you get yourself into a job and the tool becomes too small to do the job, you have three options. You can stop doing the job. You can pull back the scope of the job and allow your tool to dictate the capacity of what you do. Or three, you get a bigger tool. Those are the only three options. And so I don't believe that God ever wants a tool to limit the vision. And so it's time for us to add to the tool that God's given us. And so as we're talking tonight, I want you to ask yourself the question, what's it look like for me to charge? Not me, you. I'm asking that question to myself. But what's it look like for you to charge? What's it look like for you to charge into the unknown, into things that might make you feel uneasy at first, but believe that because what God's done in the past, he's going to do it again for you. So here's what charge is. It's a 2-year discipleship and financial campaign. 2 years. That does not mean I'm about to be preaching on Joshua for 2 years. I'm going to preach on Joshua for 6 weeks, right? But for the next 2 years, that as a church, we're going to be focused on discipling people and in raising some funds for the future. That's what it is. It has two primary goals. The first goal is this, 100% involvement. Everyone say 100%. 100%. The first goal is that 100% of people that call Living Church home would charge with us. Over the last 2 years, we've seen huge growth. We've more than doubled in 2 years, which is crazy. The exciting thing is that a lot of those people that have came are new Christians. They're baby Christians. This is the first time they've ever been involved in a church like this. And so when you're new to your faith, you are definitely new to giving any resources to God. And so our hope in this is not that we would just raise funds, but that we would raise people's faith. And that these new believers, maybe it's some of you, that all of us would say, you know, what does it look like for me to charge? So that wherever you are in your finances, that you would say, you know what, I'm going to take a step towards generosity. There are people in the church that have came and attended, and they've never given one nickel to the church. Well, our hope is not that they would give $1 million next year. I mean, that would be awesome, but that's not our hope. Our hope is that they would take one step in the right direction. I've been tithing 10% since I can remember. Like, since I got $1 from my dad, I took a dime to church my whole life. But you know what? Giving 10% is no longer a step of trust for me because it's just been so built into my life. And so Rachel and I are praying, what does it look like for us to charge? And so our hope is that we would have 100% involvement, 100% engagement of people. That's the primary goal. The secondary goal is that over the next 2 years, Living Church would raise $6 million. Now that's a big number. $6 million is a lot of money. So let me explain to you how that works. This is a one fund campaign, meaning that everything that comes in is going into this one fund. So $6 million equals $2 million of operational expenses for 2 years, and $4 million so that we can charge into the future and break ground and build a building. Right now, Living Church's operational expenses throughout the year are roughly around $750,000. As we add services and add staff and expand, we're going to see that go up to about $1 million a year. Here's what that consists of. The mortgage on this building, the renovation loan on this building, the utilities, the monthly expenses, the getting the lawn mowed, right, all those kind of things, all of our staffing. So we have staff that are full-time and part-time and stipend, all of those positions. It's for all the ministry that we do, all the different departments. So kids has a budget, and youth has a budget, and men's and women's, and worship and media and outreach and production and the website, and everything costs money, right? And so all of those budgets, along with all of our giving. So we give to a bunch of missionaries. We're going to talk about all this through the campaign. To our missionaries, we give to local outreaches that are here in Mansfield. We give to a number of church plants. That's to our benevolence budget. That's if somebody in the church is having a hard time, that we can come in and help support them from the church. And so we're looking at $1 million a year operational budget where we are right now. So over 2 years, $2 million operations, is it making sense? And then $4 million is so that we can charge into the future. So those are our two goals that we're going to do that. And as we charge, we're going to be able to do three things. We're going to be able to enlarge our church, build a bigger building. We're going to be able to better engage our city so we can serve our city in better ways through giving to the Caring Place, through showing up at different events and serving and sending volunteers, that we can better engage our city, and so we can, third, empower our world. Because as God grows our local church, we're going to send resources around the globe. I think that God looks at the globe and gets a little frustrated sometimes because of all the wealth that's locked in America. And he says, man, if I could just spread a little bit of that wealth around the globe, it could make a big difference. You see, $1 in a third world country for the gospel goes a lot farther than $1 does here. And so I think that some of the reasons that God blesses these big, amazing churches, the reason Gateway is because Robert Morris has a heart for missions. And so I can't wait until we give $1 million a year to missions. I can't wait. I literally can't wait. I will freak out and cry and jump around and be so happy, but we're starting now. Like in the little that we have now, we're being obedient to what God's calling us to give. And as we grow, he's going to keep on blessing us. And so that's what Charge is about. And I got to tell you, if somebody walked in here right now and wrote me a check for $6 million, that would be fantastic, but we would still do the Charge campaign. Because our primary goal is discipleship. Our primary goal is not raising funds. Our primary goal is to help people step into the understanding that when you trust God with your finances, that he'll open the floodgates of heaven on you. Right? And the reason that you're amening is because you've seen it happen in your life, because you've been faithful and you've seen God's faithfulness over you. And so what I want is I want the whole church to understand that this is not just about us raising money, that this is about you stepping under the umbrella of God's blessing and saying, God, I trust you. Bring your blessing my direction. And so tonight, I'm not going to ask you to fill out a commitment card. I'm not. Like, we're not about to have the ushers come with a commitment card, and hey, that's not what the Sharpie's for. You're not going to write a number on your brick. Like, don't worry about that. That's not what we're doing. But what I am doing is I'm telling you that's coming. Like in September, I'm going to ask you to make a commitment. In September, I'm going to ask you to charge. Because then I'm going to take all of our commitments, and I'm going to take those to a bank, and I'm going to tell the bank, hey, here's what Living Church is committed to do. Give me some money. I'm about to build a building, right? But we all have to charge together for that to happen. So I'm not asking you to make a commitment tonight. Here's what I'm asking you. First is this. I'm asking you to be the first to charge. I'm asking you to be the first to charge. If those of us that are leading, if those of us that are in the front stutter, those behind us stumble. And so when I get up on September 9th and I talk about we're raising $6 million, if the leaders in the room go, oh, that's a lot of money. We can't do that. This is crazy. Then the rest of the church is not going to be involved in what we're calling them to do. You're the leader, and so I've called you here to ask you to help me lead. We have to charge first. We have to run ahead first. When you charge, others will confidently follow behind you. When you charge, the people on your teams, the people in your life group, the people that serve with you on ministry teams, the person that you invited who got saved 3 weeks ago, right? When you charge, the people following behind you, they're going to follow confidently behind you. And so I need you to be with me. You know, people get weird when pastors talk about money. They get super weird when pastors talk about money. And I get it. I get it. But what I need you to do is to help people understand that it's not about me wanting their money. Here's what I hear all the time. I'll invite someone to church and say, man, I don't go to church. You know why? All pastors want is my money. And I'm like, well, they forget to realize that the only reason McDonald's exists is to get your money. They don't enjoy making hamburgers. The only reason that gas stations exist is not to provide gas for your car. The only reason they're there is to make money. If anything, the church is a nonprofit. The church exists to reach people, at least Living Church does. And so this conversation, this idea about money, is not about me getting people's money. It's about helping them align with the Word of God and getting obedient to what He tells them to do with their money so they can receive the blessing that God has promised for them. Because what I want more than money is souls. Like, I left a big church getting paid well to come here and not get paid nothing for 18 months and then to pay my bills selling cars for 5 years out of my backyard. Like, I'm not in this for the money. I'm in this to reach people for Jesus, right? And so what I'm asking you to help with is as people start saying the comments like, man, all this church does is want my money, to help correct that mindset. Say, no, all money is a tool. It's no different than this building. All money does is facilitate vision. And so when you want to reach more people, you need more money to reach more people because it's a tool. And so we believe that as we rally and we charge, that God's going to use us to reach more people. So the first thing is I need you to be the first to charge. Second is I want to ask you to champion the cause. I want you to champion the cause. I want you to be the voice. I want you to be excited about where we're going, about what we're doing. September 9th, I need you to lead. I need you to help me preach. Like, I need you to be excited with me. A lot of people that have attended other churches have been through bad financial campaigns. And they've had bad financial experiences. And they've given money and never seen a building, but they saw the pastor get a new Lexus in the parking lot. It's real. Like, this family talk, right? It's not live streaming, I don't think. And so what I need you to help do is help people understand what we're doing here. Tell them, Pastor Trustin called a meeting, and he talked about the numbers, and he said, here's what we're doing. We have a board of directors and a board of elders that are overseeing things. We've hired, I haven't told you this yet, we hired a financial Christian consultant who's came in. We've showed them all of our numbers, everything that's happening. They're the ones who made the recommendation of what we try to raise. We asked our mentors, many of which you met at SummerSlam, we said, hey, does this look good? Here's our finances. We're being transparent, saying, God, what do you want us to do? And they're giving us thumbs up that not only do we feel like this is what God's saying, but this is what logistically, practically we believe we can do. And so we're taking the steps. This is not just me like, oh, 6 million. If it was me, I would have said like 50 million, right? Like, 6 isn't, I would have said at least 7, like that's the number of completion, but they're like 6 million. I'm just saying, I would have said 10. Let's just go for 10, y'all. This is us operating in faith and wisdom, remember? I believe I can fly. It's both. And so I need you to champion the cause. When you're at life group, help create some energy. If people have questions, help answer them. Help people process correctly. The most common asked question in all of human history is, how does this affect me? We ask it all the time. How does this affect me? It's natural, because if a bear is charging you, you ask, how does this affect me? Oh, this bear's going to eat me. I have to run away, right? It's survival. And so what happens when I get up and I say, we bought 36 acres, everybody in the room says, how does this affect me? How much farther do I have to drive? Where am I going to park? I know where I sit now. Is that where I'm going to sit then? How does this affect me? And so what we as leaders have to do is help people process how this affects them. Here's what will happen. The lobby won't be as crowded. We will have a much better facility for their children so that we can minister to kids. We're going to have more space to do more creative elements and worship God in a grander way. We're going to have more amenities to reach people. We're going to have frontage road off the freeway so people can see a big giant cross that proclaims who we're worshiping, right? And so we have to help people process the fear of, well, right now I only have to drive 8 minutes to church. I'm going to have to drive 12 minutes to church, so I don't like this. No, that's what I need you to help, because I can't handle all those conversations. I mean, I can't. So I need you guys. I'll just start punching everybody, right? And so I won't do that. But at Life Group, you guys can help process with people to know what's happening. And I tell you, people will say things like, man, Pastor Trusting, he's going to change. He's about to change. He's just going to start talking about money every minute for 2 years. I'm not going to do that. I'm going to preach a series about Joshua and talk about finances, and then I'm going to talk about money the same amount that I talk about money now. We talk about finances almost every week here at Living Church. One of our pastors gets up, we take up the offering. If we have a prayer partner come up, the prayer partners, for prayer partners, a person leading prayer says, if you're here and you have a heavy thing in your life, your marriage or your health or your finances, right? We already say that all the time. If I'm preaching about trust, I talk about money there. I talked about finances last week in Squish the Grasshopper. But what happens is everybody's ears perk up when you're in a building campaign, and they go, see, all he does is talk about money. And so just help that culture. Help me lead the people that you're already leading so that we can step into this thing successfully. There's one more thing that I need to ask you to do, is I need you to plow. I'm going old school. It's acrostic. It's like straight from the 70s. I need you to plow, P-L-O-W. I need you to pray. Say, God, I'm going to pray. What's it look like for me to obey? Then I need you to listen. I'm great at praying and bad at listening because I think that I have all the ideas, and so I'm going to tell God what I think he should do all the time. And so God sometimes says, son, will you please be quiet and listen to me? So over the next couple weeks, I want you to pray, then I want you to listen, then I simply want you to obey. And at the end of September, we're going to pass out a commitment card. We're going to ask you to fill it out and bring it in, and I want you to obey. And God might tell you to do something that's scary. Joshua went into Jericho, and the walls were not a little white picket fence. They were giant walls with angry dudes with spears on the top, right? And so we have to listen, P-L-O-W, and then we watch for the wow. We watch the wow things happen in our life. And I believe with everything inside me that God's going to bless your businesses, that God's going to bless your jobs, that dream that's been in your heart, that God's going to bless it. And we're going to see some wow things happen in your life because you're plowing. I'm going to ask the band to come up tonight. So tonight before you leave, we got one more thing, but tonight before you leave, we're going to give everybody a t-shirt, if you want one, if you're willing to charge. And it's not, usually we pass out t-shirts like, free t-shirt for everybody. It's like crazy, right? This is like, if you're willing to charge, we want to have a commitment with you and give you a t-shirt. So we're going to give you a t-shirt and we're going to give you a booklet. And in the booklet, it's going to talk about where we are and where we're going and some details of the campaign. One of the things that's in the booklet is a gift chart. So we're going to throw the gift chart up on the screen. The gift chart helps us understand where we are. So I prayed, and I know you can't see it really good because it's small. It's going to be in the booklet. You can look through it. There's information there. But I said, okay, God, if in charge we have 400 people charge. We have 400 people charge. What does this look like practically? These are not like from God numbers. This is just me doing math with a calculator, right? And so if we have 400 people charge, how do we do that? Well, we would need 10 families to give this. And we need 20 families to do this. And we need 30 families to do this. And then if all of us charge together, all of us have different capacity. But if all of us would listen to what God's saying, and we would commit to do what he's called us to do, and say, you know what, every month I could do that. You know, every week I could do that. Then when we come together, we're going to see God do something great. Would you guys stand with me tonight? Is that good? Yes. So as I was thinking about the story of Joshua and the pep talk that he got. So Joshua gets this pep talk from God before he's about to go over the Jordan to charge into the promised land. It tells us in Joshua chapter 2, it says this, "Then Joshua secretly sent out 2 spies from the camp. He instructed them, scout out the land on the other side of the Jordan, especially around the Jericho." You notice he did it secretly because he remembers what happened the first time some spies went to check out the land? Moses sent people to get their opinion, but Joshua sent people so they could get a plan. That's what this is. This is us going, spying, planning, preparing, seeing what God wants us to do so we can come back with a plan. So then the 2 spies came back, Joshua 2:23. Then the 2 spies came and they reported to Joshua, "The Lord has given us the whole land," they said, "for all the people in the land are terrified of us." I love this. The giants are still there, but they go over and spy out, and they go over and listen. And they came back and said, "Joshua, everybody over there is terrified that all of us are on the bank getting ready to cross over the Jordan." You know why? Because the enemy trembles when God's people are planning to charge. The enemy trembles. The devil does not want us to build. He doesn't. He's going to attack me. He's going to attack our staff. He's going to come and try to attack your family. But can I tell you, we serve the God who already won the victory over death, hell, and the grave. And so we can conquer all of these things because we are not grasshoppers. So here's the reason I called you here tonight, Joshua 3:14. I read this and I said, we got to have a meeting with the leaders. It says, "So the people left their camp to cross the Jordan, and the priests who were carrying the Ark of the Covenant went ahead of them." This is so good. The priests who were carrying the Ark, I want you to get this, who were carrying the Ark of the Covenant went ahead of them. The Ark of the Covenant was the presence of God. It represented God's presence. It had the 10 Commandments in it, Moses' staff, and a whole bunch of other stuff, right? It represented God's presence. It made of gold with some angels on top with big old wings. You saw Indiana Jones? Right, yeah, Ark of the Covenant, okay. And so it says that the Ark of the Covenant represents the presence of God. The priests who were carrying the Ark of the Covenant, it went ahead of them. The priests who were carrying the load. The priests who were carrying the load of God's presence. Do you want to know who that is? That's you. You are carrying the presence of God in this place. Because you're a greeter, you're carrying the presence of God. Because you serve in kids, you are carrying the presence of God. Because you show up and help people find seats and put cones out in the parking lot and burp babies and change diapers and sit in the back and turn my microphone on and steer a camera when I run around on stage, you are carrying the presence of God. And the priests who were carrying the Ark of the Covenant, here's what it says, went ahead of them. They went ahead of them. The leaders had to go ahead of the people. And here's what I know. If the leaders won't charge, the church won't follow. So I need you all to pray. I need to hear from God and say, "God, I'm going to pray, I'm going to listen, I'm going to obey, I'm going to believe that you're going to show the wow, and I'm going to charge." I might be nervous, I might be overwhelmed, I might be afraid, but I believe that you've set me here to be a priest of this house, that you've set me to be here a leader. Can I tell you that you might think, "No, Pastor, you're the priest of this house." Can I tell you, I can't carry the presence of God by myself. I can't greet everybody. I can't welcome them to the doors. I can't make all the follow-up phone calls. I can't open my home 30 times a week to house all the life groups. I can't lead all the talk sheets. We are the priests of this church. We are the ones that are carrying the presence of God. And so we have to go ahead. So Joshua 2:15, it says, "As soon as the feet of the priests who were carrying the Ark of the Covenant touched the water at the river's edge," so as soon as their foot went into the water, it says the water above that point began backing up. The moment you charge, the moment that you put your foot into the unknown, the things start backing up. God starts doing something. His left hand meets his right hand, and stuff start coming together. And so it says, "Then all the people crossed over near the town of Jericho." You know what I know? Is those who went first saw the miraculous first. They're carrying the Ark of the Covenant, and they're going, oh man, it's getting serious. Joshua told us to walk into this water, and they walk in, and because they went first, they're the first to see the miracle. You have an opportunity to be the first to see the miraculous happen. And so we have to be willing to charge together. You're here because you're a leader. When you came in, you got a brick. Everybody grab your brick, and they gave you a Sharpie. Grab your Sharpie. Grab it, grab it, grab it. And I want to ask you a question. These bricks represent the things that keep us out of the promised land. They represent something that keep us out of the place that God has called us to go. And so the team's going to lead us here in a moment, and I want you to write on your Sharpie, what scares you to charge? Like, I'm up here talking about you giving money to the church. That's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about like you and your wife, or you and your husband, or you and whoever helps you do your finances, sitting down and talking about, man, what's it look like for us to charge? What's it look like for us to make a step beyond what we've done before? What's it look like for us to carry the presence of God and go ahead? So what scares you? But I don't want you to only write what scares you. I want you to write, what do you think scares others to charge? Like, as you have friends and family members and people in this place that you know that they might say, well, man, I'm in debt. Or, you know, I gave once before and I got burned. Or I don't really understand how this tithing thing works. I want you to write down on this brick what scares people to charge. You understand what I'm asking you to do? The team's going to lead us in worship. And once you get it written down, I want you to bring it up here. And we're going to build a wall. We're going to build a wall of things that are keeping us out of God's promises. And then we're going to worship. And I'm going to go full Kool-Aid man and knock the wall down. Because God has called us to charge through the things that would keep us out of his presence. Because we are not grasshoppers. We are conquerors in this world. So write them down, make them plain, bring them up here, and we're going to charge through. Start writing them down. Are you ready to shout? Are you ready to shout? Here we go. 3, 2, 1. Shout, shout, shout. Yes! We believe the wall's going to fall. We believe that fear is not going to live. We believe that anxiety is not going to reign. But Lord, we worship you in this place. We believe you're greater, that you're stronger, that no matter what's happened, that you are with us. Come on, let's worship, Living Church.